Hello everyone, my name is Doomfish, and today we are going to be taking a look at a redstone clock that I've made, and this is not your typical redstone clock. Um, you might expect like a comparator clock or something that sort of has a period of like 2 ticks. This is an actual clock, as you can see. Sort of like the item of the clock tells the time, like you expect a clock would, and it tells the time to the nearest hour. As you can see, this longer hand up here pointing to 12 up there. It's the minute hand, and this is the hour hand. And hopefully, very soon, we should see. There we go. So now it's 3 o'clock. And so it just sort of imprecisely tells the time. And it took me a while to work on this because, if we take a look back here, it's more complicated than it appears to be. I mean, you think it might just involve a simple daylight sensor, which there is one all the way over there, but there's a lot more to it. So I'm just going to go through and sort of show you the process of how this thing works. So first off, this is the timer segment right here that sort of controls everything. And so it sort of sends out a pulse to this counting mechanism back here, like that, every one in-game hour, or 50 seconds. And it does so by using a hopper clock with, I believe, 62 items in it, or 61 items, somewhere close to there. And that will send out a tick or a pulse every 500 game ticks or 250 redstone ticks, which is exactly what we want because we want this thing to change every hour. Now, one problem that you might anticipate with this design is that when a player sleeps in a bed, obviously the time changes. And so to overcome that, I have a system here using a daylight sensor, and this whole circuit is designed so that it precisely measures when the in-game time is 5 o'clock in the morning, or 23,000 ticks. And the reason for that is when we sleep in a bed, I just show you right here, by setting the time to midnight, so time set midnight, like so, and we sleep in a bed, we wake up at 2300 ticks, or 5 a.m., or sunrise. And so then it resets the whole clock mechanism and sets this active right here. And if we look at the clock, it will set it to 5 a.m. Well, I mean, it doesn't really show a.m. or p.m., but it's an analog clock. It doesn't have to. I mean, you can sort of tell whether it's day or night. And the way this works is by detecting the pulse when it is 3, which is pretty much exactly where 5 a.m. is. And then it'll send out through a monostable circuit here. And this sort of system locks it to where, let's say, the sun is setting and the power level here goes to 3. It will not send off a pulse because it's not 5 a.m. This goes into another timer, which sort of locks our first timer here for a little bit because this sort of controls resetting the clock every day and setting it to 5 a.m. So our output over here is at 5 a.m. When the day resets, and that is controlled by this timer over here instead of this timer on the left, which controls all the other hours. And so moving on to the timers here, this is a counting mechanism, and it's just something that I designed really quickly. I mean, it's definitely not the most compact system, but basically all it does is every time a pulse is sent out here, one of these blocks get moved back, and there's a redstone torch underneath that block that powers this, goes into a repeater, into a torch, into a monostable circuit, which sends off 1 tick of pulse. And once that 1 tick is sent off, it pushes all the way down. As you can see, another one goes off, and this changes. And now what's happening over here actually controls the clock mechanism. So as you can see, this is the only block that's up, right here, which means that this line is one being powered. I believe this is for 7 o'clock. Yes, it is. This would be 7 a.m. As you can see, it's pretty close to 7 a.m. I mean, it's a couple of seconds off. That's just because there's a lot of delay here. There's really no way that I could fix that, really. Anyway, when a pulse is sent through here, it will sort of keep the mechanism on, and it will also reset every other mechanism controlling the clock. So once another pulse comes through here, which would naturally be the one that turns on the 8 o'clock line, which is right here, as you can see, this one pops up, which allows power to course through here, and this one comes down, which turns off the 7 o'clock line, and as you can see, 8 o'clock is on right here. And this in the middle is just a minute hand. I decided to add a minute hand because even though we're only measuring every hour, it just sort of makes the clock look a little bit nicer. And so once all of that is done, the problem actually comes with how do we turn on these lamps, which surprisingly was the most difficult thing for me to come up with. But a little thing with observers here, if I just grab a couple of them, is if you have a basic observer clock like this, where it flashes on and off, and you put a redstone lamp behind it, even though the redstone is flashing on and off, the lamp doesn't like update fast enough, so it just stays on the whole time. So I used that to my advantage here and basically just made a bunch of observer lines all facing into a clock so that, let's say, this line is on right now. I believe this is 9 o'clock. Yes, it is. And so it pushes a redstone block up, which turns on two circuits. It turns on this circuit, which is just the 9 o'clock circuit, which means that is this straight line right here, and with exception to this block right here. And that's because both 8, 9, and 10 all use this block to fire. So what we do here is we have a system that tracks outputs from 8, 9, and 10, and uses them in another observer clock right here that goes into that middle block. So as you can see, the time just changed to 10 right here, which means that this block is still on, but all of these blocks were on before for 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock is on, it's all these blocks. So a couple of flaws here with this design is that because the hopper clocks sort of have a delay, they almost have like a recharge period when you're resetting the time. So if we reset the clock here, just by sleeping in a bed, like you would in a normal world, it'll work just fine. But if we were to, say, use console commands and repeat the process, the clock does not quite work. Because I just built this as a way, like, in your normal Minecraft world, you would never sleep twice in that short amount of time because, of course, the day needs to progress to nighttime again, or there needs to be a weather event. And that brings us on to the second issue, is that if the sky is not clear above this daylight sensor, a different output comes out, and it needs to be specifically a output of 3. And that comes out at the right time when the weather is clear. But that's not too big of an issue because when you sleep, it resets the weather to clear. And it only needs to do that exactly at 5 o'clock a.m., which you'd probably be sleeping anyways. And once you do sleep, it'll all get reset back to the correct time. As you can see, it's probably like 6 by now. Yep, 6 o'clock in the morning. So it all works pretty well, and this is something I've wanted to do for a while, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I also like the some basic designs around the edges, using this polished blackstone stair slabs for the numbers right here, tell you what time it is. And yeah, it's pretty neat. I'm just going to reset the clock. So when you can tell when it's okay to reset the clock is if these hoppers are not transferring items, these ones on the right. Because these are the ones that control the reset over here. They need to be set up to where there's no items flowing into the hoppers because that sort of messes up the timing when we do reset. I can just do this one more time, and this should work perfectly fine if I can get in the bed. And we should be perfectly reset. So you can see, if I do it quick enough, that one is up, it resets everything, and then that one for 5 a.m. comes up. And if we head to the front, it is on 5 o'clock exactly. And if we just to pull it out, a clock. Now, the clock in this game works a little bit differently because it has a day and a night side, and this is just a typical analog clock. So it measures both day and night, and it just has 12 numbers instead of like 24. So as you can see, the clock and the redstone clock over here are sort of desynchronized. And that's just like a visual thing. The time is like pretty much perfect right on. So yeah, I mean, this is less of a tutorial and more of just a showcase of something I built here. You can definitely do it in your world. I mean, this is definitely not a fully optimized design. But it functions perfectly. I mean, I can't really complain about anything. See, just turned over to 6 o'clock. And it'd be something cool if you're playing in like a multiplayer server and you want to make like a town thing. You could make like a clock tower. I mean, this is a huge clock tower for sure if this is going to be the clock. But yeah, just a couple ideas of something you could do. So I think that's going to do it for us today. And if you found this video informative or entertaining, go ahead and leave a like on the video. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.